Bluetwelve Studios' feline frolick fingered its way to the hearts and controllers of millions of gamers sipping milk from a saucer. Within days of its release, Stray has become Steam's best user-rated game of 2022, beating God of War's cheeks off its throne. The PC modding community wasted no time customizing the game to their liking, and even mainstream news outlets like CNN called Stray perfection. Today we take a whiff of catnip and judge this adorable yet short game on 10 categories, and find out if it's a mangy back alley stinker or a pampered indoor pussy. Let's get it. So what can you play this game on, and how much is it going to cost you to do so? This game launched July 19th, 2022 for PS4, 5, and Windows PCs. If you're on the PC side of the house, you're going to be getting it through the Steam launcher. If you're playing this game on console, you can pick up a physical disc copy or the digital copy in the PlayStation Network, which is $30 and gets you both the PlayStation 4 and 5 version of the game. Also, something to note, it is a very tiny game file, especially for a modern game. 7.5 gigs for the PS5 version and 6.7 for the PS4. And when you purchase the $30 bundle on the PSN, it will install whatever version of the console you're on, so it prompted me to install the PS5 version, but you have that PS4 version in your library if you ever want to install it. As for the story, there really isn't a whole hell of a lot to this game plot-wise, not only because the game is incredibly short, but also you're playing as a cat, so there is no dialogue, and in that aspect, there's no real like character building or character development, because since you're on your own, you get separated from your little squadron, your platoon of stray cats. You're on your own, so you can't communicate with anybody because you're a cat. You have a drone that's strapped to your back, known as B12, that you can launch to communicate with the robot NPCs of the world. To be honest, there really isn't much of a story here, but I'll summarize it in a couple of sentences. During a trek through the ruins of an abandoned facility, a stray cat becomes separated from his group of kitty friends. You quickly come across the lab and download an AI into the body of a small drone calling himself B12, not the vitamin. Your new drone companion explains that much of his memory was corrupted and will need time to recover. So basically, the B12 drone promises to return the stray cat to his friends, and the stray cat will help recover B12's memories. And as for the setting, it's not a post-apocalyptic world, but there definitely is no humans. There is a virus, but the robotic servants, which are called companions, are still left around. Playing through this game, you're hung up on how adorable it is to play as a cat, but literally nothing from the story is going to shock and awe you. There's no twist, there's no layers of plot twists or anything like that. Now, gameplay revolves entirely around solving puzzles, getting the memories back of your B12 drone, climbing and traversing the environment, and then solving more puzzles. There's virtually no combat. We'll touch on that during the combat section of the review. But think of it almost like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, except you're on all fours. Instead of Nathan Drake or Lara Croft, you're a freaking cat. And I gotta say, the development team must have watched a ton of cat videos or strapped those little motion sensing cotton balls to a couple of real cats and had them run around the studios, because the mannerisms and movements of the cats are so accurate and so true to life, it's ridiculous. And because the gameplay actually immerses you into being a cat, such as having the camera angle down low, looking upwards because you're small, or being able to climb damn near anything and land on your feet from very high distances. Now, luckily, these puzzles are not very hard, because if you look around your environment, there's going to be little visible hints. For example, things written on the walls that direct you as to where to go. Now, keep in mind, this is pretty much a kid's game, so gameplay is not going to be super complicated, and tying in line with that, the controls are incredibly basic. Like I mentioned, there's no real combat mechanics, there's no crafting system or anything like that. It is a very, very simplistic gameplay style. You climb, you crawl, you collect, you solve puzzle. You repeat for about 4 to 6 hours. One feature I absolutely love that this game supports is in-game hints. So instead of having to pause the game and then go to YouTube or look up a tutorial or walkthrough online, if you get stuck at a puzzle, you press the PlayStation button on your controller, and then some game cards will pop up, and one of them is for in-game help, and you can actually pin that picture-in-picture box to your screen so you can see your gameplay while it's playing a video walkthrough of where you need to go. It was incredibly useful. The biggest issue with the gameplay, in my opinion, is going to be a lack of control on the movement. You cannot jump to absolutely anything, and cross is by no means a dedicated jump button. You can't just press cross at any time and the cat's gonna jump. You have to be aiming or looking at a ledge or pallet or barrel or any object, and then you'll get a prompt on screen with the cross button. Press that and you'll jump to that ledge. I do think the sprint works incredibly well. Granted, it is defaulted to the right trigger, which makes sense because if you bind it to L3 or clicking down the left stick, you would have to keep it held down, which makes it very hard to steer. So I left that bound to the default of right trigger, but I wish you could press the circle button to crouch, and while you're sprinting, that would cause you to slide, and that perhaps pressing the square button was an attack where maybe he swiped with his claws, and there were some actual enemies that would try and attack you throughout the game, instead of just constant puzzling, which I don't have a problem with. It's a puzzle platformer. That's the genre. I get it. Also, a fun little note, you can trip pedestrians in the city, those AI bots walking around. Much like a frisky kitty, if you walk in between their feet, you'll trip them and they eat shit pretty hard. It's pretty funny. Combat. How much time you got? Kick up your feet, grab a snack, call your wife, let her know to pick up the kids. Just kidding. Combat is incredibly bare bones. There are two kinds of enemies in Stray that can kill you. The first one is called Zerks. They're little bacteria that crawl around and grab onto your nipples. And the second robotic assholes are called Sentinels. They're these little drones, robots that fly around, and if they catch you in their spotlight or beam, they're going to try and shoot you, and they do a pretty good job. Do you have any weapons? Not really. One, technically. Your drone B12 for a portion of the game has what's called the defluxer, which you press L1, and you have about 5 seconds of shooting purple UV light, and it will kill the Zerks, and it's on about a 5-second cooldown, and you can just continually spam cooldown. Now, this is one thing I was a little let down by, was the fact that combat was so scarce. There's only 2 enemy types and 1 weapon, and I understand that combat, digital violence is not what this game is about. It is a cute, adorable, Pixar-like game about you exploring a mysterious town as a cat. But I do think more should have been added and fleshed out with combat and other aspects of the game, which I will touch on during my verdict. Graphics. They're not going to slap your tits back then call you for sloppy seconds, but they are pretty impressive. Due to some very good ambient lighting effects, especially water on the ground, and overall just the way that light cascades or bleeds through this generally dark and bleak city looks really impressive. Also, colors were incredibly vibrant without looking overly contrasty. I can't speak on the PlayStation 4 side of the house, but on PS5, the graphics looked pretty damned good. I'm giving them 4 out of 5. The audio design was phenomenal. The way you pick up ambient sounds off in the distance, as well as, of course, cute cat noises, such as purring and licking and sapping up water and whatnot, but also some of the intense moments when the virus and some of the machines are introduced sounded really intense. Now, I primarily listened to this game out of a soundbar with 2 rear satellite speakers and a subwoofer, but I also played a couple of hours with my Pulse 3D headset, and I've got to say that spatial audio was doing its job, as I was able to pick up some very unique sounds from behind and the sides. Audio design, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. As for the soundtrack, I thought it best explained from a short blurb on this website. For the game's soundtrack, composer Jan van der Wisnervenvergen captured that central idea, seeing a desolate cyberpunk metro from the eyes of an unassuming feline, and translated it into a synthy soundscape filled with reverberating chords and driving, pulsing drum beats punctuated by unexpected and welcome moments of instrumental whimsy. So a lot of buzzwords and fluff there, but in all honesty, it was a very good soundtrack. It fades in at just the right moment to where it's not overwhelming, but it definitely adds to the intensity, the emotion of the scene. I thought it was incredibly fitting of not just the setting, but also the fact you are a cat. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. As for settings, it is incredibly bare bones. There is very, very minimal settings in this game whatsoever, especially for controllers. There's no dead zone settings, but awkwardly enough and welcome enough, there is full key binding, so you can individually map each button, which is awesome. Since there is no combat or shooting in this game, there is no aim assist options. There's no graphical mode settings, one focusing on sheer graphical fidelity, the other a high frame rate. Very minimal settings, which isn't too detrimental because it's a pretty basic, simplistic game, but I'm giving it a 2.5. Wait, 2.5? 2/5. 2 out of 5. 2 of the potential 5. As for the controller features, this is a PlayStation 5 game. What does that DualSense controller do in your hand? Well, it does everything you think a DualSense controller would do for you. It'll be listening to you, so you gotta mute that microphone, but you're gonna be feeling a ton of accurate vibration from the haptic feedback motors, everything from lapping up water to scratching on a rug. I do think the adaptive triggers could have been utilized slightly more. They did a good job with the haptic feedback, but the adaptive triggers only come into play during a couple of mini games. Can't even really call them mini games. They're more of just like activities, like scratching on a scratch post or rug, where the adaptive triggers get very stiff and you feel like, well, wow, look at me. I'm really clawing through this carpet here. I'm really fucking my owners over, right? But I think slightly more could have been done with the adaptive triggers. I play this game on a scuff reflex as well as an aim V3 with the paddles removed, just tapping the face buttons and enjoying the subtle meows from my controller. Yes, the speaker in the controller does meow at you, and it is adorable. And I had a great time playing this game on controller. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 due to them not fully utilizing the adaptive triggers. As they always do, Digital Foundry released a fantastic video/written review on their blog of the performance of Stray, base PS4, a PS4 Pro, a PlayStation 5, and then also PC, which PC, believe it or not, is the worst platform to play on performance-wise because it is having some stuttering issues. No glitching, no frame tearing, just a little bit of stuttering where the frame rate will dip down, and it seems to be at the most inopportune moments as well. And unfortunately, that is only being seen on PC. You get some very minor stutters on the PS4. I didn't notice any at all during my playthrough playthrough on the PlayStation 5, and the way it's stacking up as of now, the best place to play Stray is on PlayStation 5, then PS4 Pro, then a base PS4, and then unfortunately on the PC. As for the resolution and frame rates of all these platforms, you're getting 1080p 30 on the PS4, that includes the base and the Pro. The PlayStation 5 is going to be 4K 60, which is very impressive because that is 8 times the pixels per second compared to its last gen brethren, the PS4. I'm going to quickly read the sentence from Digital Foundry because it basically solidifies why PlayStation 5 is the best place to play this particular game. Firstly, the autosave hitches are nearly vanquished. Now, I unfortunately did run into these twice. It is when the game is autosaving, you will get a pretty substantial hiccup or stutter, but it lasts 1 to 2 seconds because it only happens while the game is saving, writing data to your SSD. And we get a much more responsive platforming experience at 60 frames per second, combined with 4K presentation and DualSense support, which, by the way, definitely adds to the immersion of being a cat. That haptic feedback and those adaptive triggers. Gimmicks? Maybe call them what you want, but they're dope as hell. Performance was actually quite good on my playthrough on the PlayStation 5. However, taking into account what's happening with the PC side of the house, with those stutters, and then also some pretty nasty autosave hitches on the PlayStation 4, both base and Pro, I'm gonna have to give performance a 3 out of 5. End game / replayability, and this is where Stray falls straight on its face in a bag of fleas. There is no multiplayer, there is no additional modes, there is no real collectibles, there is no side quests that you can revisit, and there's no crazy unlocks when you beat the game. So why would you replay this game in the first place? Well, because it is a very cute, unique game that is unlike virtually anything out there. This is a title you might beat, let sit on the shelf for a couple years, and then revisit. But other than that, I think replayability is incredibly low on Stray. I'm giving it a 1 out of 5. One quick caveat to that replayability is going to be the speedrun community, because I can already see, because of the cat's movement and how quickly you can get around the environment, the speedrun community, not only on PC, but also PS4 and 5, is going to be all over this, streaming it, throwing videos up on YouTube and whatnot, and that's going to add a lot of value in the replayability department, but only with the speedrunning community, and that doesn't really apply to like 99% of average gamers. So what's the verdict? I'm giving Stray 34 out of 50 points. It is a fantastic platformer. I know that sounds low on the scoring scale, but you have to keep in mind a lot of that was because of the lack of settings, replayability, and also combat. Now take those 3 low scoring categories along with the lackluster story, and that you can beat this game in about 4 to 6 hours, 5 is the average. And this game seems to me a little bit incomplete. To me, it seems like an awesome platformer, but incomplete, much like Astro's Playroom, which comes pre-installed on the PS5 to show you the features of the DualSense controller and, you know, show you the horsepower of the PS5. This game has been in development since 2015, and it seems to me like this was more ambitious of an undertaking than Bluetwelve Studios was initially anticipating. Just getting the sheer mechanics of making a realistic looking and moving cat, which they did, they probably had to cut a lot of features, a lot of content, maybe a lot of missions, a lot of side quests, maybe some combat mechanics, maybe some additional features that got stripped out and not put in the release copy. And that's kind of what it seems like. The entirety of the game is running around platforming, solving puzzles as a cat, which is adorable. Don't get me wrong. I love it as much as the next guy, but I honestly feel, this is my theory, my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory here. I feel like Bluetwelve Studios as well as SIE or Sony Interactive Entertainment were using Stray as somewhat of a test dummy to test the waters with this style of gameplay, because this is a brand new IP. This is its own thing. There's no other games like this. And now that they've seen that people are going crazy about this game, it's blowing up all over social media, people are talking about it, they love it. The reviews from major gaming outlets as well as individual gamers, actual users, is very high. And I do feel like they're going to make either a sequel or what should have been the full-fledged launch, this original game here. It's something that's maybe 14 to 18 hours playthrough time of the story or campaign with additional modes once you beat the game, such as maybe like a survival mode or some kind of like a mini game mode that you can play with your friends, all running around as cats, because there is no multiplayer. Think about how awesome that would be if you and your buddies could all squat up and run around as cats and stuff, whacking little stuffed balls back and forth, or, you know, running around doing some crazy climbing and clawing at each other or whatever. It'd be great. At the end of my playthrough, I honestly did feel like the entire game was almost like a tutorial section, because you're in somewhat of an enclosed space, you're inside that inner city, and then you open it up to the open world, and that is going to be the full release Stray game, or it's going to be called Stray 2 most likely. But what we should have gotten with this game here, because it was in development since 2015, but it is so bare bones and basic with the gameplay, runtime, lack of modes. And I'm not bashing this game by any means, because its core gameplay is phenomenal. So I do think this was a test run, and it went incredibly well, as we've seen. And Bluetwelve Studios, probably with direct help from SIE, is going to make a full-fledged, probably much more robust, longer, more content-packed Stray 2. I had a blast with this game, and I strongly recommend picking it up for $30, as it is an absolute joy. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers. This information will will reach and assist them as well, which in turn helps me grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, as well as honest gaming product reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics, chairs, etc. There are some hefty exclusive discount codes found only in the description of my videos and only for the audience here at Gamer Heaven. Check out Into the AM for some of the sickest looking and most comfortable cloth to ever grace my gaming giblets. If you don't want to be scorching your corneas with harmful blue light, check out Gamer Advantage, the only blue light glasses on the market that look sexy and actually work. If you're looking for a custom controller that'll blow the competition's tits back, AIM definitively has the best bang for buck or price to performance when it comes to Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch controllers. Nope, they don't do Switch, but they do gaming mice. I said doo-doo. I have links to all my other platforms and socials in the description below. If you need a quick laugh or blast of gamer adrenaline, check my short form videos out at TikTok. To get in touch with myself and the Stallions and Stallionettes of Gamer Heaven, join the community Discord, and check me out at twitch.tv where I go live every other leap year on a blue moon if it falls into an odd calendar number, and my pH balance is on point. Just kidding. Starting June, I'm going to be live streaming a lot. Thanks for watching. This has been AK40 Kevin hosting Gamer Heaven, and I'll see you tomorrow because I upload daily. All the time. 60% of the time. Sometimes. Most of the time. Peace.